Says live on my side.
Okay, I guess we're live. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and
Yeah,
welcome
it's up.
to season two, episode 5 of Living in the Texas Hill Country. So we're all back. I say we're like there's a bunch of us. Carly and I are back together this week. Um, I had a program last week, but glad to be back. But I don't know. I guess did everyone get lots of rain this past weekend?
We got, I think, over 2 inches, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's what we got here in Uvalde. Joel, did you get any rain this weekend?
Pretty good.
We were a little less than 2 inches in College Station. So we
Okay.
will we will take whenever we can get it as often as we can get it.
I
Absolutely.
I, I 100% agree. And I don't know. I haven't looked at the forecast, so I feel like that may have been our last chance of rain for a little bit. At least where I'm at. Our
We're
last
supposed to
chance
get it
of
this
rain
week.
for a little bit. Oh, you're supposed to get more rain in College Station
This
this
week.
week.
That's what they
I
say.
was
Okay.
gonna say mine shows it's storming for the next week, so
Okay. Well, then
hopefully.
maybe I haven't looked at my phone or looked at my weather recently enough, but hopefully we'll get some more. But not a bad way to start the spring. But
Yeah.
yeah, so Carly, you want to introduce our guest this week? Because this is 100% your idea, and I think it's a great
Yeah.
because go ahead.
Yeah, so I asked Joel to come speak today. Joel has done a couple of programs with me here in Johnson City. We did and I may not be saying it correctly, but basically a well water testing campaign program. And he spoke at it as so it wasn't just getting the results of what your well water looked like. It was also learning how to take care of your well, just some different considerations and things. And then a little bit about septic systems as well. And I'm sitting there taking notes. I don't even have a well, but I loved listening to him talk. He's very practical. And so, Joel, do you want to tell us your official title and where you're sitting at right now?
Yes, ma'am. So my name is Joel Pigg. I am a program specialist out of College Station, and the program that I offer is the Texas Well Owner Network. So I go around the state of Texas and do what Carly just said. We encourage people that have private water wells on their property to bring a sample to us to be screened for contaminants. And then we offer an educational component that goes along with that. You can't, extension is that education and outreach component. So we get people to bring those samples, and then we have the program to explain Water Wells 101. We talk about aquifers, we talk about septics, and then we talk about the results that we see from the screening process. So as Carly can attest, I travel with a lab in the back of the vehicle I'm in.
Mhm.
So we are not a certified lab doing these programs, but we are across the state. So Liz, I will actually be in your neck of the woods in 2 weeks. So I've got
Okay.
a Uvalde, Real, Sutton, Kenny, Kimball program lined up in a couple of weeks. I
Nice.
am sitting in Brownwood, Texas right now at the Texas 4-H Center. Whenever I get through at the program or the meeting I am doing here, I am heading to New Boston, which is in the farthest northeast corner of Texas where you can go. And I'm doing a program there tomorrow and whatever, let's see, what's today, Tuesday, tomorrow and Thursday. So I make my rounds around the state of Texas doing programs. We try to do upwards of 30 to 40 programs a year on water well because water is a very important subject across the state.
So do you cover so you pretty well cover the entire state
Mine is
of
a
Texas?
statewide program. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So I guess my question for you is what is your background? Like how do you get into this area or this field?
Okay, so I started off in Extension in 1997 as an assistant agent. From there, I went on to campus into the Soil and Crop Science Department, where I went to work for the state peanut specialist. We did peanuts for a couple of years, and then we turned into the state cotton specialist. From there, I moved out to Real County. So I was in Leakey from 2007 till 2019. This Texas Well Owner program actually came out and covers the hill or covers statewide. So they came out and did a program in either Uvalde or Junction at one point. The guy that was doing the program was working on his PhD, and I told him offhandedly, "Hey, when Drew gets his degree and moves on, call me. I'll come do this." And 2011, I got out of extension and went to work for the groundwater conservation district that covers Rial County and Edwards County. So Rial Edwards Conservation Reclamation District. So whenever they came out, I was part of that organization, not extension. And in late 2018, I get a phone call one day and says, "Hey, are you ready to move back to College Station? We know that you said that you would come do this program." So I'd been doing water wells and water education and water stuff in the Hill Country. So my son was a freshman or a sophomore at A&M and called him and said, "Hey, they just offered me a job on campus. What do you think? Should we come back to College Station?" His response was not nice.
He's like, no, no,
No,
no, please,
no,
please.
we don't want you here. You're good where you're at. So we took the job and came back to College Station. And then so been doing this since April 15th of 2019. So about 7 years I've been back on campus doing this program across the state.
Very nice. So you said, so Carly kind of mentioned, so you basically cover in a lot of your programs you said well water sort
Okay.
of
So what we do
testing.
is we get people to bring a sample from their private water well and we screen those tests. We don't test water because we're not a certified lab.
Okay.
So we screen water samples.
Okay.
We screen water for absence or presence of coliform bacteria and E. coli bacteria. So like I say, I carry incubators with me everywhere I go. We take their samples, put them into sterile bottles, and we put a little bit of food into it. And then we put those things in the incubator for about 24 hours. Carly can tell you the samples when they go into the incubator are clear, look like water out of a water bottle. After 24 hours, about 30 to 40% of those samples will turn yellow and look like a urine sample. If they turn yellow, we do know that they are positive for coliform bacteria. We also take every one of the samples, put them under a black light to see if they fluoresce. Anything that has that nice glow to it, we know is positive for E. coli bacteria. Part of our process also is to screen the samples for nitrates. We screen it for the pH so we can kind of figure out where we're at. And we look at the salinity or the TDS, total dissolved solids of those samples. And in many locations, we do also screen for absence or presence of arsenic. So when we go to the Permian Basin and into the Rio Grande Valley, we know that arsenic is an issue with the aquifers there. So we screen in those locations for that arsenic aspect. So we kind of know where some of the issues are, like in rolling plains of Texas, we know that there is always high nitrate levels. When we go to the hill country area where y'all are at, we know that the TDS, the salinity, hardness is always going to be a little bit of a concern. pH typically is not a big threat to us. Neutral pH is 7. Anything from about 6 to 8.5 or so is a good pH. For the TDS, we like to have numbers below 500. At that 500 parts per million, the water starts tasting salty. College Station water is about 550, so we know that the College Station water is not great. So we do about 2,000 water samples on an annual basis, and 30 to 40% of those do test positive for coliform. Coliform doesn't really concern me in Texas. It tells us that we are hot and dry in Carly's area there of the hill country. We know that with the limestone formations and the formations of those aquifers, we are very prone to coliform bacteria, especially during the summers when we are hot and dry. And she's been hot and dry for several years now. So we know that's going to happen with our samples. We know that about 3 to 8% are always going to test positive for E. coli bacteria. We did do a set of programs and samples last year after the flooding across the hill country. In those samples, we did about 400 to 500 samples extra than we typically don't do, and we were seeing about 80 to 90% of them test positive for coliform and about 50% testing positive for E. coli. So that tells us that a lot of these wells, these limestone formations, were inundated with water. There was stuff moving across the surface that came out of the flood waters, and our numbers were a lot greater than what we typically see on just a random testing procedure, screening procedure somewhere in Texas.
So you had mentioned like kind of like, so it's like you said, like West Texas, some concerns over there, like arsenic, like all of these different, I'll say, concerns for the different sort of regions of Texas. Is that just sort of natural things that occur, or is it kind of become one of those things where it's more of like a man-made problem that we've started to see?
It can be both. Just thinking about the area you're in Uvalde, with all the production agriculture we've got going on. So you get south of Lakey into Uvalde County, we do have some nitrate issues because of the fertilizers and things that have been put on the property across time, same as the rolling plains of Texas around Vernon. So things up there, there are lots of production agriculture, lots of those nitrate issues. Um, Arsenic is a naturally occurring, so it's nothing that we have done right or wrong. It's just if you have the luck of the draw and are in those areas, you're going to have some arsenic issues in those wells. Uh, I know everybody in the Hill Country right now is hearing about the issues going on in the Corpus area. One of the concerns that they're having there is with the wells producing more and more water, the aquifers are dropping. So there's more and more concerns about the arsenic that's in the South Texas, and there's more issues with salinity going up because they're taking all the good water off of the top of the, that good fresher water that they're using, and it's getting more saline as we're getting more drawdown. So those are some of the issues. That's why we're throwing up some red flags in that coastal bend in South Texas area at this point.
Gotcha. So I guess we kind of took a bit of like a detour. So I guess we'll like
Sorry.
detour. So hey, that is how it goes on here. And Carly can attest that I am the worst at like I go down rabbit holes and I get questions and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, we need to like let's pause a minute, we're having a good conversation. Let's steer back to why we're here today.
For
So I
sure.
guess let's go back to septic systems. So I'm not gonna lie, I know I'm not gonna say very little. I know nothing about septic systems other than that they are very, very important to have around your house. That's about it. So, I guess what I don't even know where's a good place to start. I know Carly, I think you've dealt with septic systems a little bit more than I have.
Okay, so
Um,
I'll go ahead, Carly.
no, yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say what I got most out of your talk was like some of the I guess like common misconceptions of like how to maintain it properly. So I don't know if you wanted to start
Okay,
there maybe.
so part of my program is the I've got two different programs that I offer. One of them is a 1 hour program that just really covers a lot of well stuff, and I've got a little bit of information on septics. I've got a half a day program that goes more in depth on everything. We've got a guy that travels with us out of College Station that septic is his job there at the Rellis campus. So he talks a lot about it. So I have taken his hours worth of presentation and I'm going to condense it down into about 9 bullet points for you. So
Perfect.
bullet point one, here's the things I find important that they say about septics. Inspect your septic system regularly to make sure that it is functioning as it is supposed to be functioning. One of the things that we do see, especially there in the hill country, is those septics have been in the ground a long time. They don't have a livelihood of forever. They have a lifespan of however long that concrete can maintain itself and the issues with shifting rocks and shifting everything else. So septic tanks do go bad over time. So we want to inspect those tanks to make sure that everything is functioning properly. Second thing is we want to pump out the septic as needed. Generally speaking, let's go 3 to 5 years. If you have an elderly couple living in a house, you may go 7 to 10 years. If you've got a young family that's got 4 kids that flush everything known to man down the toilet, you may have to do that every year or two. So it just depends on what your usage is on what we have to do. Next thing we find is avoid or reduce the use of the garbage disposal. Don't put those fats, oils, and greases down into your septic because they will mess with the microbial load. They will make your system not function properly. Minimize the volume of household water that is treated with your system. By that, we mean I live in College Station. I'm on the city sewer system. We do laundry on Saturdays at our house. We do 6 or 7 loads of laundry on Saturday, and we do a lot of water. If you've got a septic system at your house and you do 7 loads of laundry, guess what? You just washed every bit of good bacteria out of your system into the leach lines out into the yard. So we want to sporadically do the laundry so that we don't overload and inundate our system with that freshwater influx. Okay, we want to make sure that we are not dumping chemicals, paints, harmful things that is going to kill the microbes down that system. We want to protect the drain field from damage. So by that we mean, if you think about leach lines on a septic system, that is very thin-walled, perforated pipe. We don't want to plant the garden over the top of that. We don't want to put the kids' play set if you've got one of the sprinkler systems that it's going to be sprinkling it all the time. We don't want to park the vehicles and the tractors on top of it because that is very thin-walled pipe. We will crush it and our system will not drain properly. One of the things Carly was alluding to that she wanted me to talk about, I think here is there's research that has been done on campus at A&M as far as adding like your Ridexes and your yeast or whatever you think that is adding and making your system work better. From a research aspect that we have there at A&M, those things that people are adding to it have not shown to significantly alter what's going on if you're just using a natural system. So from a science perspective, we don't say that you have to add the yeast or the Riddex on an annual or a monthly basis to make your system work properly. So here's the funny part of it. Our septic guy says, your homework assignment after our program is to eat and be regular and use your septic, go to the potty like normal. If you do that, you're adding everything to your septic to keep it functioning at 100% properly. We'll never tell you don't add the additives if it makes you feel good, but science perspective from a research basis, it is not shown to add any significant difference to those septic systems.
Okay, so
And then
so you kind of mentioned like first checking your septic system on a regular basis. What does that sort of mean? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, the first thing is you want to make sure that you are seeing the effect of it going into the system, that there's not a leak between the house and the septic system. Make sure that it's functioning properly on the other end so that the leach lines that you do see, that the sprinkler heads going off on those newer systems, that you do see that there's water coming out of the septic on the other end. You know, if your grass is all dry on your leach lines where there's no water coming out of it, that tells you something that could be clogged up. So the other thing is, you know, we need to be able to access these septic systems. We need to be able to take and get into them. So, you know, it's a big concrete lid on top of your septic. How many of you have a septic that is at the surface of the ground or one that is buried underneath the ground and you're not sure where it's at? Because I can tell you in Real County, Texas, you buy some of these properties that you purchase now, you don't know where the septic's at. You don't know where the water lines are at. It's a crapshoot on, so to speak, where things are at. So if you don't know, I mean, it's always good to know so that you can check the solids and the fluids and the fats, oils, and greases that are floating in that system to make sure that it doesn't need to be treated, or if it does, we know how to get to it and can get that taken care of. So half of our problem is access to those systems.
Gotcha. So, okay, so you kind of touched on a little bit of, problems of one, if, sort of the grass is like dry, looks terrible, there's probably something
It's
going on.
If you're
Are there,
using the heck out of it, yes, very possible.
are there any other sort of signs that people should look for that there's something going on, there's something not correct?
Well, you should, I mean, if a system is functioning properly, it should not have an odor. It should not have, there shouldn't be issues. If you have an odor coming out of that system, then that's an indication that there's something that is not functioning properly, that we need to have it looked at. So, just make sure that everything is, in the slide presentation that my septic guy gives, there's the new aerobic system that's right there in the backyard. Sprinkler heads pop up. There's a play set right next to it where there's, every time it goes off, it's washing the slide and filling up the sandbox. So, things like that. We know that this water is supposed to be decent, but do we really want to drink that water? Do we want our kids playing in that water? So we need to think of possible issues and take care of those issues before they become bad issues.
Okay, gotcha. So I was gonna say I had a question, I lost it. Carly, you have a question? I'm gonna think of my question and we're gonna come back to me.
Yeah, I get asked a little bit about you were talking about additives. So on the yeast and the red eggs, but what about bleach? Are we supposed to be putting bleach in it?
I personally would not. I mean, what I would say is, thinking about hill country, and if you're out there building new homes, new locations, even if you got some of the older ones, whenever you start building these things, like the biggest problem I said a while ago, if you've got the minimum or maximize the volume of household water to be treated, if you can plumb your house so that that gray water, so we talk fresh water, we talk gray water, we talk black water. We want the black water to go into the systems for sure, but if we can get gray water to not inundate our systems, we need that on the trees in the yard instead of putting it into the septic system. So, if you can put that valve in, or you can put those two different drain lines into your house whenever you're building, as we're increasing the population out there in the hill country, that's something that you want to really consider. Take those lines going from your bathtubs, possibly from the washing machine for sure, and put them into the yard so that we're using that water for a really good beneficial purpose, not just putting it through the septic system.
So you had just mentioned, sort of, and again, so for somebody that's ignorant, I kind of know a little bit, not a lot. So black water being water that cannot be used for you don't want to use it for anything other than for going into your septic system. Gray water being stuff coming from you, like you said, your washing machine, your bathtub, where you could technically probably drink it. It's not going to be the best, but it's not going to necessarily make you really, really sick.
It's
Is
not good
that
for you.
pretty
Well, okay,
much in a nutshell?
so I always use the example whenever I go in to do classes for kids. We talk about travel trailers. So you've got three kinds of water for a travel trailer. Fresh water is the water that comes into it, that goes everywhere. It goes to the sinks, goes to the toilets, goes to the showers. That's the water that you can drink because it's coming out of a good supply. Gray water is the water that goes through the sinks, goes through the tubs. So the only thing it's going to have in it is soap and whatever else is going through those sinks and the bathtubs. Black water is potty water. We do not drink that. It has to go into a system of some sort, whether it be into a old concrete style septic system or one of the newer fancy systems. But that's water that has to be treated. It can't be like in the hill country and out at the deer lease. It can't be dumped on the ground. It is supposed to be put into into a septic system and treated properly. It can't just be, we don't want it dumped on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So you'd mentioned like all the bacteria, and you're not supposed to really add anything as long as you pretty well do your business on a regular basis.
As long as it goes through you, you're adding all the microbes to make your system function properly.
So all those microbes we produce just by doing
yes.
what we do, and just
Yeah,
we add more to the population. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. That's actually it's kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a great system.
It's kind of cool. So I guess those little microbes that are in there, they're basically we're just feeding them, and they're just breaking everything.
They're eating up the solids and just decomposing what they're supposed to be doing. So
gotcha. And then so you'd mentioned, adding some of that gray water in there, that just makes them unhappy.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Okay, so you go to Walmart, you go to HEB, you see a product that says septic safe. What does that mean?
I'm guessing that means it's not supposed to make your bacteria unhappy.
Okay, so that would be the perfect thing. That's what you would think. But actually, what septic safe means in the septic world is it will flow through the pipe. It'll get from the toilet to your septic system. It has nothing to do with safety, which we would think it would. Just means it flows through the line and gets to the septic system. Okay. Also think about whenever you have a septic or even a sewer system in a community. The thing that tears up those systems worse than anything is baby wipes. Those flushable baby wipes are not really flushable baby wipes. They are causing all kinds of issues in that system. They have a show and tells type septic system at the Rellis campus at A&M. He said the thing that really tears up their systems more than anything that burns pumps up to make the system not work is flushable baby wipes.
Who invented those? I would love to speak to the person who invented those, because no, everyone's like, don't do it. Just don't do it.
I mean, think about it. Whenever you have a flood in the river, You see trees floating down the river and they're there for years. They don't decompose quickly. Paper, toilet paper, flushable wipes, they're paper, they're trees, so they do not decompose. So our septic guys say every time you take the lid off of your septic, you're going to see a nice big layer of toilet paper and things like that that are floating on top of that. And then you got the liquids and then you got the solids that are settling to the bottom.
So even standard toilet paper does not.
It doesn't decompose as fast as we think it would. I mean, that's why I
Hmm.
think about it on your travel trailers.
Mhm,
They don't want you to use that nice, good toilet paper like they have on commercials on TV.
mhm.
They want you to use that state park toilet paper that's, you know, paper thin. You can read a newspaper through it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what, so travel trailers, you want to use that because it decomposes faster because it's so thin and
I-
does what it's supposed to, but it's not high quality.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of funny to think about, I guess, because you think about toilet paper, like the only thing it's good for is what you use it for. You try to
Mhm.
you're like in a pinch, you're like, I need to clean up a mess, and you grab a wad of toilet paper and it just like disintegrates in your hand
Yes,
as you're trying to wipe up something, but then it's literally sitting in water and
dissolve all the
it
way.
does not dissolve.
So keep that in
Okay.
mind.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, so we went over common mistakes that people make. I'm trying to think. Is there anything? I mean, I know we're missing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we might can jump over to wells too, because I know Joel's got a lot of really good well stuff. I don't know where to
Okay.
start with it though.
Let me just, let me, I'm gonna kind of read through some slides, but not really, just kind of to jog my memory, make sure everything's going. Okay, so the reason we do this program is in Texas, household wells are not subject to water quality testing. Anybody that buys water from a municipal supply, a HUD, a MUD, a city supply, that water has to be tested and make sure that it is up to drinking water standards. If you have a private well at your house, nobody comes onto your property and says, hey, is this water good enough for you to drink? That's where my program comes in and makes you think about, oh, I do need to test this because of, as Carly can attest, the things we're looking at are colorless, odorless, tasteless. When everybody brings a sample in, they're all clean, they look good. 24 hours later, maybe not. So we have those issues that we want to make sure people are thinking about. Um, there's a lot of people moving into the state of Texas right now, especially into y'all's area, that are buying those rural properties that have no clue what that means, what a well is. They've been on a city supply their whole life. They go in there and turn the water on, and you have water coming out of the tap. So in my travels, I've come across the county agents that said, hey, let me tell you this story. We had a couple that bought a house a couple of miles outside of the city limits, got up one morning, turned on the water at the tap, nothing came on. So they called the city and said, hey, water's not working. Can you come fix it? No, city says, sure, we will do that. Maybe we have a water line break or something. Where are you at? We're out on County Road such and such. The city's like, you're outside of our jurisdiction. We don't have, that's not our water. You have a water well. And the people are asking, what's that? What does that mean? So a lot of times we're not doing a good job explaining what a water well is, what that little piece of pipe coming out of the ground or what that other little house out there on the property is. So, a well is a big investment. For your investment, you see a piece of pipe coming out of the ground. You do not know what's going on the other 200 or 300 or 400 feet underneath the surface of the ground. So they don't know what they've got. They don't know what it means. So part of my program is Water Wells 101, where we explain these things to those people that are buying those properties and tell them what parts of a well, what pieces do. We encourage them to find well logs for their wells if it's on their property or if they're having that well drilled. What a well log is, it's a piece of paper that the driller fills out after they drill the well that tells us the depth of the well. It tells us what the yield of that well was when it was drilled. It tells us where the static water level is. And over time, these are things that are going to be very important to you as a well owner because, like I say, you see 1 foot of pipe coming out of the ground, you know nothing else about what's going on with this well. The thing that I remind people is if you weren't the person that had that well drilled, you're going to have to get on your appraisal district rolls, look at previous owners of these properties, and think, okay, so this well's probably been here 10 or 15 years. Look at those appraisal district notes and see who owned that well or that property 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And there's a couple of websites that we can go to with Texas Water Development Board. They have a bunch of well logs. Anything drilled from 2000 until today is supposed to be put on this website. And those well logs are listed there. Carly can tell you again that there's a map that I show on the screen that shows a bunch of little dots. Each one of the dots represents a private well, and we know there's probably between 1 million and 2 million wells across the state of Texas. So we have a ton of them, and people don't have these pieces of paper in their possession, but I find it very useful because I want to know. I know I'm going to have well problems sometime. You don't get to put a pump into a hole and it lasts forever. You know, at some point you're going to have to replace it. It's nice to know what the volume of the well was when they started, what that water level was, what the total depth of the well is, so that you know and have a starting point, because things can happen. The yield is going to go down as more and more straws are put into the ground. The yield is going to go down. Over time, we're going to have sediment and things going to the bottom of the well, so it may not be as deep today as it was the year that it was drilled. So well logs give you lots of vital information about that piece of pipe sticking out of your yard or in your pasture, wherever it happens to be. So I find it very important. The other thing I preach a lot on my programs is we want to make sure whenever we're having well work done on the property that we are using a licensed person to do that work. Just because we think we can pull a pump out and fix it ourselves doesn't mean we want to be the one doing that. We want to make sure that that person has that license, that they know exactly what's going on, because you're dealing with your water that you're drinking, your family's drinking. We don't want to have a chance of messing that up and causing issues. So always make sure that you use licensed people. There are certain qualifications across the state of Texas that to put a well on your property, we want you to be a minimum of 50 feet off of your property line, meaning your neighbor would be 50 foot. So there would be 100-foot spacing between those wells. We want to make sure that you are a minimum of 50 feet from your septic tank to your well. In Texas, water generally flows to the southeast towards the Gulf of Mexico. So if I get to choose on my property, I want my well on the highest point of property, probably that northwest corner. I want my septic to the south and to the east, down gradient if at all possible, because we know everything flows downhill. So if the well's at the highest point, it's not near as likely to be inundated with septic if we have septic issues. We want to make sure that our leach lines, again, are southeast of our wellhead, and we want that to be about 100 feet. We want to make sure we're 100 feet, 150 feet from any sources of contamination, pet shelters, livestock yard, feed storage, pesticide storage. We don't want all of those things that we've got in the well house right now. We probably want those in the barn or the garage away from our wellhead, because they are really possible contamination things that could mess with that freshwater supply. So keep everything a good distance away from our wellhead when at all possible.
So you had mentioned working with like somebody, if you're putting in a well or need anything worked on, to get someone that is certified.
Yes.
Is there a way, because obviously you call someone and you ask them and they, aren't, they're, be like, oh yeah, absolutely, like I'm certified. Is there any place to go or anything that you should look for when looking for somebody?
Yes. So if you go to the Texas Department of License and Regulations, do their license search, it's going to bring up a search box or a search program for them. You would tell that program it's got several blanks, but there's a drawdown or a drop down menu. So the TDLR gives licenses to cosmetologists and elevator people and to water well people, cosmetologists, anything that has a license in Texas. So the drop down menu, when you pull that up, you're going to drop down to the next to last option, which is water well drillers, pump installers. From there, I would go down a little bit further on that search engine and type in or draw down the county that I am in. So if I wanted to get a water well driller in Uvalde County or in Blanco County, I'm going to find those two things, hit the search, and it's going to bring up everyone that is certified or has a license within the boundaries of that particular county. And the only reason they're within that county is because that's where they live and that's where they work. But if you live in Blanco County and you want to use somebody out of Bear County, or you want to use somebody out of Kendall County, you can do that. It's going to tell you, just do those searches for those counties. And it's going to tell you about those people. It's going to tell you the designations. So a lot of these guys that have licenses are drillers.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are pump installers and some of them are both. But if you want a well driller or a well drilled on your property, you can't use a guy that can only fix pumps. It has to be a driller to drill the hole. If you want to have the pump fixed on it and the guy can only drill holes, legally he cannot fix that pump on your property. So hire the correct person for the job that you are wanting done on your specific property.
Gotcha. And so you had mentioned sort of at the beginning is, you know, getting your well water tested. How often should people be doing that?
We recommend annually for the bacterias because they can pop up, especially in any time there's an event that happens that a flood, we want you to get those things tested because anytime your well is inundated, but annually for bacterias. For the other things like the nitrates and the TDS, they're not going to change a whole lot over time. So every 3 to 5 years, but every time we come in and do a program, we will test the things that we talked about earlier. We'll do that. TDS, we'll do the nitrates, we'll do the bacterias. So, and I always recommend that if you want to know more about your water, and we're not going to be doing a program there, the soil, water, and forage testing lab on campus at A&M is always a great place to send a sample for relatively cheap. It's probably $30 to $40 to get a very comprehensive sample, so it's a good location to get things started with your well water.
Okay. Well, I feel like you said, you could probably literally spend an entire day on all of this stuff, if not 2 days on all of this stuff. But I feel like is there anything that we missed that you feel like people need to know, just sort of as like some general knowledge?
Well, okay, so Texas is bipolar weather, right? So if you were this past weekend, we were in College Station and it was in the 40s and 50s
Yeah.
in the evenings, and it was in the 90s first part of last week.
Mhm.
So my recommendation for people that have wells is to winterize early and leave it winterized late because we get our 2 days of winter is usually in February, but depending on where you live in Texas, we may get a freeze in November. We may get a late freeze in March or April. So winterize early, get those wells protected from whatever crazy stuff we're going to have. Keep the well house clean, keep the critters out of it. Just make sure everything is functioning properly and everything looks good because, it's way easier to fix well issues when it's warm. There's nothing worse in the world than fixing a well when it's cold and wet. Cold and wet don't mix very well.
Yep.
So always prepare early because the day that the weather guy calls for the freeze, everybody and their dog is going out and buying those pipe sleeves and everything else they can to protect that well. So, and when I showed up at the hardware store, everything's going to be gone. So do it early, be ready for a change in weather, especially that hill country. That stuff can pop in pretty quick and it can get living in Lakey. It can get devastatingly cold down in some of those little low spots. So be prepared, do what you've got to, and keep an eye on your well because that is your drinking water supply and there ain't no other water in lots of those areas. So be ready, know what's going on. When we do these programs in the hill country, I would say we're going in 2 weeks. The week of the 19th, 20th, 21st, we're going to be doing programs in Kerr County. We're going to be in Real, Kinney, Uvalde, Sutton, Kimball, Edwards. We will be in the hill country, so in the western edge of what y'all are talking about right now. If anybody's listening to it, participate in our program, learn. We're going to talk wells for a couple of days out there. So we encourage people to go to the programs and learn as much as they can.
So where should they go to sign up or get all the information, to their county agents, or?
They can go to the county extension offices, or you can go to my website, which is twon.tamu.edu, and it has information about the programs coming up. But all of those 7 counties have, the county extension offices do have information on this well or program, and some of the groundwater conservation districts out there in those that cover those counties are also participating with our program. So we encourage people to learn as much as they can.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Carly, you have any last minute thoughts or questions?
Not really. I did link, I found that license search website pretty easily, so I linked that on there. Also the forage, soil forage and water testing lab and your,
Do the one for
TWON.
do the Water Development Board well identification search would be a really good one too. That's where they find those well logs. So Texas Water Development Board well search. And it should come up with that map.
Oh, cool. Yep.
Okay, that's a really good one too.
Cool.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, and I love the program that y'all do. I loved it so much I had it twice last year. So
Yes, we did.
if you have the opportunity to go to one, definitely do. And I guess we'll have you back pretty soon. Probably not this year, but
Excellent.
give you a break over here. But thank you so much for your time and doing what you do. I'm sorry you're the only statewide person that does that. I'm sure you're really busy, but we
Well,
do appreciate
Texas
everything
is such
you
a
do.
small state, you know, not a
It
big
is.
deal.
It's so easy. It doesn't take that long to get anywhere in Texas.
Exactly. All right, if y'all have questions, reach out. My contact information is on that website. I get calls about wells all the time. Don't hesitate to call or send me an email. I'll be happy to visit with you about your well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joel, and we will see y'all next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.